My name is Jehan Moorthy and I run for my health. I'm running for President of UMSU. This past year I was VP Finance and Operations of UMSU. I realized after about 10 months of being in the role that there's not really a lot of time to complete a lot of the projects that you want to get done in that time frame. And I realized that there was a lot of opportunities and a lot of sort of threats coming up to the student community, and I think we need some really strong, firm leadership to sort of keep the mantle of a student union going. I've been a big advocate of UMSU as an organization. I've been a spearhead in the strategic plan. So UMSU, if you don't know, is coming up to its 100th anniversary. It has a lot of potential and it's still not meeting that potential. There's a lot of students who still don't know what UMSU does for them, and I think that I'm sort of the firm candidate that can take UMSU into the next 1 year and keep UMSU in sort of a good stead for future leadership. So outside of me being VP Finance and Operations, before that I was involved in sort of student groups, particularly the Undergraduate Political Science Student Association, and I founded the Bartending Student Society. And then I moved on to UMSU last year, and that was sort of a great year for me to develop some leadership qualities, some advocacy sort of experience, some experience doing media interviews, expressing sort of thoughts and concerns to the wider community, and then being able to represent student needs, as well as looking after the interests of our student-run businesses, which was a big part of my portfolio last year. So I was very much involved in the promotion of the businesses and oversight of the businesses and making sure that our businesses were operating at sort of its peak efficiency. I've sort of a firm background in sort of hospitality management, and it's kind of where I see myself going in the future, and I thought, you know what, let me use this year to sort of ferment sort of my passions into a role, and I saw a lot of great results out of that. UMSU is looking to end this year in a surplus for the second year in a row. So one of the things I really want to advocate for is the introduction of a digital democracy initiative. So I want to make UMSU a lot more present interactively and on our website and online and through social media. One of the biggest things, as I mentioned earlier, was the fact that not many people know what UMSU is and they're unsure as to what it does for the student community. So one of the things I want to do is I want to implement a better way that students can access UMSU resources online, a better interactive method of providing sort of comments, questions, concerns and issues, a better issues management system, a better way of transparency when it comes to filing a complaint or a concern, or even filing something like a grant or an application to UMSU. Secondly, the cost of tuition is going up by 6.5% now that Bill 31 has come into play. One of the big things I want to do is advocate for students' interests at the Board of Governors and to the university administration. So one of the big things I want to do is make sure that any additional revenue generated goes back into things that students can actually visually see. I want to make sure that the university is confident in spending money back to where students can actually see the results of that spending. So in the classroom, through resources that support students' well-being, as well as supporting students outside of the academic setting and making the university look a lot nicer aesthetically, as well as money being spent towards resources that can supplement sort of academic studies, so e-learning resources, open educational resources, etc. So one of the biggest things that we have sort of discovered as a team sort of connecting with students this past week has been that students need to be represented. They need to be represented well on an advocacy standpoint in terms of how they are in terms of relations with the professors, in terms of relations with the administration, and then the City of Winnipeg. We have a contract with the City of Winnipeg, which is where my Vice President Student Services candidate, Brandon Barrett, will be sort of working to make sure that our concerns with the UPass are communicated to the City of Winnipeg. We also will work to provide a platform to move concerns across from students to the provincial government and the federal government if there needs to be. And then so UMSU really needs to look and be a communicator as well as a good representative in times of sort of crisis and need, and that's where I see UMSU's sort of biggest role in this university. So right now I think there's always room for improvement in any sort of situation, and I think that currently I've seen sort of in my time here as a student the good, bad and the ugly of UMSU. I've seen what works, what doesn't work, what could go well and what doesn't go well. So one of the things I've noticed this past year is that there's so much room for potential for what we could be doing, and I was part of the strategic plan process this year where I spearheaded a project to survey students, engage with them sort of through town halls and through surveys, and I found that there's still lots of room for UMSU to grow in, and that's why I was adamant in putting together the strategic plan so that we are then sort of given some clear-cut objectives and goals towards meeting sort of student needs and therefore meeting the potential that I find currently is lacking. We find that UMSU is generally very sort of reactive to things that happen, so we want to be proactive and we want to tell students that, hey, something is coming, that you should be aware of the potential changes, but this is what we'll be doing in spite of these changes. The second biggest issue that we find is that students are having concerns about the cost of ancillary fees, so that's cost of parking, the U-Pass. So we want to make sure that students can opt into a spring U-Pass if it's introduced by the City of Winnipeg, and we want to make sure that we follow through on the current negotiations on the Flex Parking Pass, which was implemented by my co-workers last year, Tanjeet Nagra and Wilfred Sam King and Alison Kilgore, and I want to make sure that I continue their work into the following year so that students by the end of this year will see a Flex Parking Pass, and I'm really excited to see that students will be able to save money in this area too.